Rivera, who is now part of our staff here she's on the island of St. Croix. She is a veteran herself and a member of the Wounded Warrior Program. We're really just so honored to have one of the veterans here in the office. And just so you all know, she's going to be working a lot on veterans issues. So veterans know that you have someone here in the office who is specifically assigned, committed to you all. I know that Cletus Clendenin, my district director, has served you all well, but Candia is joining the team to ensure that we have someone completely focused on Veterans Affairs. I'm so also grateful that we have a number of people who are going to be speaking with us and answering questions that you all may have. Our own Patrick Farrell, who heads up the Veterans Affairs for the Virgin Islands government, Mr. Carlos Escobar, Mr. Daniel Massa, as well as, of course, Dr. LaPose are here to support us with veterans issues. But I'm deeply honored that my colleague, Mark Takano, who is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee in Congress in the US House of Representatives, is also a part of this virtual program. Congressman Takano is from California. We're not going to hold that against him. He's a lifelong resident and he represents a district in California, born and raised in Riverside. He is a Harvard College graduate. And when he returned home to Riverside, he began teaching. He taught for many, many years. As a classroom teacher, he confronted challenges in our public education system. He was elected to the Riverside Community College District Board. He then eventually came to Congress, where he has represented not just the people of his district, but the people of the United States incredibly and admirably. He has been elected to be chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, which he has been on for a number of years, has unique experiences and perspectives, and has really just put his shoulder to the wheel, brought his staff down to the Virgin Islands, has been engaged with our veterans in the community. I just want to really grateful for the hands-on approach that he has had, the empathy and the concern that he's shown to our veterans, and not just all of that, but actually really pushing for veteran services here in the Virgin Islands to be equal to that of any veteran anywhere in the United States. So Congressman Takano, I'm going to leave it up to you now. You can speak, and then I'm going to turn it over to Candia to moderate for the rest of this town hall. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman Plaskett. Let me just say to all those watching this Zoom call, what an amazing representative you have. She's very energetic. She is so committed and passionate in representing the people of the Virgin Islands, and especially veterans. I can't tell you how many times that she has spoke to me on the floor about any number of issues that, and she's asked me to come down many times. And so I'm thrilled with you to be here with you today. And I want you to know, last July, I led a group of members from the Veterans Affairs Committee to visit Puerto Rico, to visit veterans in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. But unfortunately, due to some disrupted travel plans by events in San Juan at that time, we had to cancel our visit to the Virgin Islands. And I promised Stacey that we would return next year. And now we are in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic, which has disrupted travel for everybody. That said, I am thrilled to have an opportunity to be with you in some way. And I look forward to hearing about your experiences and what we can do to help the Virgin Islands as we move forward. Now, I'd like to share a bit with you about what Congress and my committee have been doing during this pandemic. Now, early on in March, Congress passed the CARES Act, which allocated about $20 billion for VA to bolster its ability to respond to coronavirus. This enabled VA to swiftly increase its bed capacity in hospitals, rapidly hire staff, buy sufficient amounts of personal protective equipment, and make steps to improving access to telehealth services to all veterans. The CARES Act also authorized VA to enter into short-term agreements with telecommunications companies to deliver free or subsidized support for mental health services through a telehealth connection, or VA's Video Connect service, and Congresswoman Plaskett mentioned that in her opening statement. VA is also working to ensure veterans participating in the HUD VA Supported Housing Program, otherwise known as HUD-VASH, to have access to telehealth equipment. Now, for veterans in state veterans homes, the CARES Act allocated $150 million for emergency state veteran home construction and $2.15 billion for information technology. Additionally, the CARES Act provided the funds for VA to have no hesitation about fulfilling its fourth mission. Now, many of you might not have realized that VA has a fourth mission. And what is it? The fourth mission is VA's responsibility to not only protect veterans in need, but to be the nation's backup healthcare system in the event of a public health emergency. That means not only pandemics, but also hurricanes, earthquakes, fires. And so VA is there as a backup healthcare system. To date, I have to say that VA has done a commendable job for civilians during this pandemic. VA has formal mission assignments from FEMA in 43 states and countless informal humanitarian missions, from providing consultation to private nursing homes about infection control, or sending VA staff to assist the Navajo Nation as it battles the coronavirus. And you have to, most of the deaths, or a big chunk of the deaths that have occurred to COVID-19, have occurred in private nursing homes. And VA has expertise in infection control, and they have sent, strike teams into these private nursing homes to assist the management, often who do not have infection control expertise. Now, you will note that I did not mention a fourth mission assignment in any of the territories yet. And in any of the information my committee receives from VA every day, there appears to be no veterans in the Virgin Islands who have tested positive for COVID-19. I repeat, no veterans. Now, I hope that is the case. And I hope even more that veterans aren't getting sick and the VA is missing those veterans. Another issue my committee is working on is hurricane season. The last week, the Subcommittee on Health held a hearing on the unprecedented challenge of responding to natural disasters in the midst of the ongoing global pandemic, and how VA plans to battle both at the same. They're going to possibly occur at the same time. Now, I was disappointed to learn that VA is still working on a plan, even though hurricane season is already here. It started on June 1st, as it does every year. Secretary Wilkie has told me that he's not worried about hurricane and disaster season because VA and FEMA are, quote, well practiced, end quote, in dealing with disasters. With all due respect, I'm concerned and I'm worried. VA needs to make sure its evacuation and sheltering plans are able to accommodate social distancing where possible. You simply cannot move large numbers of people you're evacuating into congregate situations in stadiums or gyms. You have to plan and think ahead about keeping the social distancing policies. Federal and territorial coordination plans must be ironed out before disaster strikes, not during the disaster. And veterans must know that they can expect what they can expect from the systems that are entrusted to keep them safe. Now, I know from the impassioned, tireless work of your representative, Stacey Plaskett, that care for veterans in the Virgin Islands has often been lacking, and that you have challenges veterans on the mainland will never have to contend with. Overnight stays in San Juan to get physical therapy, mental health appointments with providers who don't speak the same language as you do, and severe delays in accessing critical programs such as the caregiver program. Now, I know that the territories, particularly the Virgin Islands, have not often been considered in the plans and procedures that VA puts in place. My committee is determined to see that changed. I look forward to hearing from all of you today, and I apologize in advance if I have to jump off a little early, but I'm really grateful to be here. I'm grateful for the invitation from your Congresswoman. Thank you, Congresswoman Plaskett, for this event, and thank you to the VA officials who are here, particularly Mr. Escobar and Mr. Lapuz. It's really great to see you again. And most of all, thank you to the veterans and families who took the time to be here. Your stories do matter, and we need to keep communicating and have open lines of communication for you to make this government work better to serve you. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate that and appreciate the time that you have to give us. Candia?
Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Miguel H. Lapuz, Director of the VA Sunshine Healthcare Network. Please introduce yourself and tell me what you have done in your role during this pandemic.
Thank you very much, Candia. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Lapuz. I'm the Network Director for the VA Sunshine Healthcare Network, or VISN-8. I'd like to thank Representative Plaskett and her team for inviting me to be with all of you today. And I'd like to also thank Chairman Takano, Director Farrell, and my VA colleagues, Mr. Escobar, and the VBA for their continued support of the VA mission and the veterans we all serve in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VISN-8 service areas include VA healthcare facilities in most of Florida, South Georgia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The VA Caribbean healthcare system is one of our healthcare systems in VISN-8 and responsible for the delivery of care to veterans in St. Thomas and St. Croix. Since my time as VISN-8 Network Director, we have forged stronger partnerships with many of our guests on today's panel. Several months back, Chairman Takano visited with us to learn more about VA footprints in both Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands, specifically our emergency preparedness programs to ensure all veterans have access to high quality care even in times of disaster. We recently held a call with Representative Plaskett, where she too is keenly focused on improving care to veterans. And Director Farrell has really been a driving force in these efforts, helping us better understand the unique concerns of veterans in the U.S. Virgin Islands, whether it's improving access to care, improving transportation from the island to the medical center in San Juan, increasing our readiness for emergency situations like hurricanes, and most recently supporting our efforts to test veterans identified at higher risk for COVID-19. These are valuable and productive relationships, and I thank them for their advocacy on your behalf. So quickly, I'd like to provide an update. In terms of the emergency preparedness, we are continuously working on preparing, and as well as we're holding a sort of an exercise to ensure, or really an exercise to ensure that we're fully coordinated and that we will know exactly, for example, where to transfer veterans that needed to be transferred. We have procured 2 vehicles that will be converted into a mobile medical unit, and one will go to St. Thomas, the other one will go to St. Croix. We're in the process of actually converting them at this particular point, and we're working with contracting to ensure that that is done timely and to make sure that that happens before the hurricane season, or rather, well, it happens before we are confronted with a hurricane. And in terms of our COVID-19 response, there are 2 things that we have done aside from the regular preparation that is unique for the islands. One is that we have actually made arrangements for testing of veterans in the islands for 3 sets of veterans. One, those with clinical indications for testing. The second one is testing of veterans whom we have identified to be vulnerable because of their chronic medical conditions. And the third one is veterans who would walk into the clinic wanting to be tested. At this particular point, we have tested over, or rather close to 300 veterans and we will be continuing that effort. The testing percentage of VA users in the U.S. Virgin Islands that have been tested is better than 10% of our frequent VA users. Now, in comparison to the rest of the country, only 6.1% of the population has been tested for COVID-19. The second thing that we're doing, or that we have done, is we have made arrangements and have an air transport contract now, and this is not limited for COVID-19 veterans, but what that contract will do is to ensure that there will be a dedicated air ambulance that will transfer the veteran who will require admission to San Juan to ensure that we do that expeditiously. So to close, I'd like to thank you for your service and sacrifice to our great nation and your continued trust in VA. And I look forward to all of your questions. Thank you very much for having us. And thank you very much, Congresswoman Plaskett.
Thank you, Dr. LaPluse, for serving the veterans of Florida, South Georgia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Next, we will introduce Mr. Carlos Escobar, Deputy of the VA Caribbean Healthcare System. Please introduce yourself and discuss what major impacts you have made in the territory.
Yes, good afternoon, and many thanks to Ms. Plaskett, Congressman Takano, and Director Patrick Farrell. Much appreciated. I would like to expand on the exposition from Dr. LaPluse. We want to, first and foremost, want to thank the members of Congress and the Director Farrell for your tenacity, keeping us aware in our mission to provide the services for our veterans and also in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So with respect to the COVID-19 response, I would like to also expand that in fact, we had been meeting with both Department of Health officers, not only with the U.S. Virgin Islands, but in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. During the response, it became very early in the process that it was imperative for us to intervene and understand the challenges that each of the local governments were having to maintain a quick and swift response. Putting our veterans first, it became imperative that we needed to establish that alliance and communication. We were successfully being able to also establish the tracing process to identify those that were to test positive. As indicated, so thankfully, we have not been having to get to that level of intervention, but the infrastructure, the mechanisms on communication to ensure the collaboration between both governments and the federal government were instituted. It became very also evident that it was imperative for us to plan safe passage of every single veteran in the event of them requiring testing. So coordination also with VA Police and U.S. Virgin Island Police, as well as the National Guard, was secured. And many thanks to those officers that were involved on assisting us, the safe testing and the secure management of the transportation and traffic that took place on both islands. We also continue to have strong communication with the community care program, recognizing the preference of many veterans to secure care in their community. During this event, we have a total of 534 encounters or referrals of veterans in multiple specialties that have been able to secure access to care and have not been impeded, even though that we have been challenged with air transportation worldwide in that context. We'd like to also thank as we intervene and work together with the American Legion Post 85 Ms. Wanda Centeno and her sister Elizabeth Centeno help us with donating water for staff and veterans that were coming to receive their screening in that context. In addition to the plans to position these vehicles that will serve us to respond not only for emergency, but also look into opportunities to increase the access to care. We believe that it will be a wonderful opportunity for our academic program to intervene and participate on our funded pilot for healthcare disparities by creating opportunities for young providers to be able to engage and be actively involved in the community of the Virgin Islands, with active participation and creating opportunities to much better understand, the differences and create more culturally competent providers in the future. So as you can see, it's a commitment. It's a strong desire to become strong members of the community in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and that motivation and that call to arms has been very, very strongly driven by the intervention of Congressman Takano and also the lead of Ms. Stacey Plaskett in that context. Thank you for your leadership in that context. Also, would like to share with you, we have successfully implemented with the resources and the expansion of Veterans Video Connect program. Now, all veterans in the U.S. Virgin Islands, as well as in Puerto Rico, we have been able to essentially exceed the level of encounters that we were experiencing prior to the event by moving very quickly into the modalities of ensuring primary care as well as mental health access to all of our veterans throughout both islands and territories. Also, during this period, we activated the access to the Heritage Pharmacy Contract. That Heritage Pharmacy Contract had a wonderful utilization. Overall, 91 prescriptions have been filled with a total drug cost of shy over $3,000 throughout the area. And St. Croix had a total prescriptions released, about 86, and St. Thomas about 69, while continuing to provide the support through the mail-out pharmacy program, where more than 3,700 prescriptions have been shipped and delivered, distributed to the U.S. Virgin Islands. We'll continue to also on our commitment to establish strong partnership with the community providers. We have been able to secure since last March the enrollment of more than 222 providers now with the community care. That's a thing I believe is a strong testament of the wonderful relationship we're establishing with the providers that previously were not participating with the VA programs. So in that context, I think that's a great opportunity to continue to increase the access and the implementation of the Mission Act, as well as the CARES. So, well, thank you for the opportunity to expand on all other interventions that we have done through the VA Caribbean healthcare system. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar, for more than 20 years that you have served to our veterans. Next, we will go to Mr. Daniel Messer, our public contact coach for the Puerto Rico and U.S. Virgin Islands, San Juan Regional Office for the VA Benefits Administration.
Candia, can we go to Mr. Patrick Farrell, please?
No problem. Lastly, I would like to introduce the director, Patrick Farrell, our very own, who served in the U.S. Army for 20 years and now answers all issues concerning Virgin Islands veterans. Please be sure to introduce yourself and share some concerns you have heard from our local veterans and things that have been done to implement. Thank you.
Hi, and good day, everybody. Glad to see everyone on the panel. Thank you, Delegate Plaskett, for orchestrating this virtual meeting. It's very good. I wanted to say it's probably the first of its kind, and it's good to know that we're able to reach out and ask questions, or have our veterans ask questions to leadership across the nation without them actually being physically present. Mr. Chairman, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. I know you did have staff here within the Virgin Islands assessing our situation, and we are very, very thankful for that. Carlos and Miguel, we speak on a regular basis, so good to see you guys again. To the veterans of the Virgin Islands, special good afternoon to you, and thank you for being on here today. I do see that we do have quite a number of veterans here present. And I'll ask that you, when the appropriate time comes along, that you ask your questions, make them known. I am particularly happy to learn that the emergency transportation has now been taken to another level with the identification of the air ambulance, because that's a conversation that we've been having for quite some time. So I'm happy to hear that now has come to fruition. Really, really happy about that. I also want to say thanks for the COVID-19 testing that was able to take place in the Virgin Islands as well. Yes, it took us maybe a couple of weeks or so, a little bit more to get up and running. But I remember our very first conversation. I'm really happy to know that we were able to test the amount of veterans that we were able to test. The National Guard is not online, and I'd just like to say thank you to them for jumping on board and helping in the ways that they did. It was very instrumental in the success of the COVID-19 testing. So that was really, really awesome, and I'm glad that was able to happen. And it happened in a very great fashion too. I know the veterans that took part in that would tell you that they were really happy that it took place as well. As far as my concerns, the one concern, or not concern, and something I like to put out there is there is a need. I think there really is a need for us to have a community care office or representative or representatives that are stationed within the Virgin Islands. That way this person or these people will be able to reach out to our community care providers and shake a hand, look at them face to face, and be able to address their current concerns to another level. I really believe that it's high time that we have that person on the ground here. Yes, in San Juan, they're doing a good job at controlling community care network, but it is time now for us to make that change where we have someone in the Virgin Islands that could cover the entire territory. So I like to put that out there and ask you to consider that. Not for the first time, because of course we had the conversation before. So as Miguel and Carlos, we spoke about it before. So I just want to bring it up one more time. So as far as the rest of concerns, I will yield to the veterans that are online and allow them to bring their concerns forward. Again, Delegate Plaskett, thank you so very much for making this virtual meeting happen. It's much, much appreciated. I stand by for questions, if any.
Thank you. We're going to open now to our question and answer segment. Is there any questions that you have for our panelists?
Excuse me, Mr. Carlos, you're on mute.
Okay, I've just unmuted. I would like to address the response and suggestion on community care office from Director Director. I think it makes sense to increase our presence in the area. I believe that there are some great opportunities to work that from within the base on the clinic's operations, since a lot of every single referral is going through the primary care provider, and so it will make sense to coordinate the community care activity in the area through each one of the clinics, to establish that rapport between provider to provider interaction. I think it will create some opportunities for also better care coordination, in that context. Also understand the Optum, the contractor, has established now a permanent office in San Juan. We believe that they have made a commitment or a pledge to ensure that representatives from the office that manage, the payments to the community care providers, that they provide workshops and interaction and orientation and make themselves available. So to that effect, I believe that has continued, and through those interactions, that's one of the main reasons why we have been able to get such a great enrollment, within both islands. We're having over 200 providers now. I think that's a great success. But we'll continue working and collaborating with you, Patrick, in that context.
I just want to thank you very much. I had a question. There was a comment that said that presently the testing that's been done for the coronavirus of veterans in the Virgin Islands is better than 10% of VA users that are here in the Virgin Islands. And then the percentage that was 6%, is that 6% of the larger veteran population throughout the United States?
No, that is the 6.1% is the population of the United States that have been tested for COVID-19. And in the US.
What is our, I'm sorry, I just wanted to know, what is the percentage of veterans throughout the country that have been tested through VA clinics or VA facilities?
Outside VISN 8, the general percentage of veterans is actually lower than the population. That is about 2%.
Okay, great. That's great to know. Thank you for that information. And thank you so much, all of you. I know that my staff has some additional questions. Dr. Escobar, you talked about the number and the expansion of individuals who are now part of the network. What are the particular specialty areas or docs that you think that we still have need of here in the Virgin Islands that can support our veteran population more efficiently?
I believe that one of the challenges that we're encountering for the whole region, including Puerto Rico, is radiation therapy, oncology treatment through radiation therapy modalities. It continues to be a challenge for both areas. So that's probably one of the most significant ones. Orthopedics, some of them continue to be a challenge, especially on those that on the orthopedic arena. We may have access to knees, but maybe not specialties such as hands and elbows. So it depending on the specialty, that's one of the areas where we're finding still some challenges. And that's one of the main reasons why we believe that beginning to expand the academic rotations through the islands is going to create opportunities for us to look into the recruitment and retention of providers for the future.
Thank you. Candia, I don't know, or Tiana, I don't know if there are any questions that are specific for Congressman Takano. While we still have him here, I want to make sure that we utilize him as much as possible. But Mr. Farrell, I know that I saw in one of the chats, there was a question about home insurance. I know that our veterans, many of them are they use USAA. But I think that USAA is not completely covered here in the in the U.S. Virgin Islands, correct? There are some services that they do not afford veterans living in the territories. And so we would love to have some support on that. Which one is that, Mr. Farrell?
You're absolutely correct, Delegate Plaskett. USAA has some services here in the territory, but for home ownership is not one of them. I've reached out to the Lieutenant Governor's office, and the Lieutenant Governor and myself projected to have a meeting with USAA to see how we can change that. But right in the midst of us doing that, the COVID-19 came upon us, so that is something that we will revisit in the very near future.
Thank you. Candia, I'll let you and Tiana take it away.
Okay. Thank you again for joining us all. Specifically, Mr. Chairman Takano, thank you again for taking the time to just joining us and really putting in provisions in the CARES Act specifically for veterans. And as you know, under the CARES Act, they allotted economic stimulus payments to all Americans. And so my question is there any additional steps for veterans? And Mr. Patrick Farrell, you can chime in as well. Is there any additional steps for veterans to receive their economic stimulus payments?
Thanks for the question. Currently, to my knowledge, there are no additional steps for veterans to take to be able to get their stimulus checks. That's one of the things. There was a press release that came out from the Home Office of VA in reference to stimulus, and I had it posted on our webpage concerning that, and we spoke about that on our radio show one Tuesday. But no, to my knowledge, there is no additional or even, I'll go as far as to say preferential to my knowledge. But I am willing to look further into that and give a response at a later date.
Let me just say that there was concern about disabled veterans or veterans that were receiving benefits and their ability to access stimulus payments automatically, that there was an effort to cross-reference those on VA benefits. And why I say this is because many veterans who are mainly dependent on VA disability payments or other sorts of programs may not file taxes. And since they don't file taxes, they would have to actually apply for the stimulus payments separately. But my understanding is that there was an agreement forged between the VA and the Department of the Treasury, the IRS, and that they were able to identify those veterans, and those veterans did not have to file taxes in order to get the stimulus payment or go through a special process. I want those veterans to also know to not be worried that their eligibility for certain VA programs will be impacted by the stimulus payments. They should not knock you out of eligibility because you now have more income. That's not to be, I mean, that concern was specifically taken care of in the legislation.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Mr. Takano, as well as Mr. Patrick Farrell. I also see a question here in regards to insurance, and it says, I have a concern concerning veterans' home insurance. Home insurance is very costly here in the Virgin Islands. We as veterans don't have the option like other veterans nationwide. What is being done to assist with that?
Okay, I think I just covered that same question in my previous answer. Myself and the Lieutenant Governor are going forward to having a meeting with the chairman and maybe the board of USAA to see how we can get the United States Virgin Islands incorporated into those that are able to take advantage of those services by USAA.
Thank you for that. This question is for Chairman. Can you better explain how the Mission Act is being implemented in your territory? Yes, the question is for Chairman Mission Act and how is it being implemented?
I think I heard my name mentioned, the
Yeah,
transmission.
I think she's having some difficulty, so she's standing right here to ask the question.
Yes, the question is, can you better explain how the Mission Act is being implemented to the territory?
I believe we're having some service issues, but the question was for Congressman Takano, and it was, how is the mission, can you better explain how the Mission Act is being implemented in the Virgin Islands?
How specifically the Mission Act's being implemented in the Virgin Islands, I can't, I don't have an answer for you right now. I did,
Right.
Dr. Lapuz, who was saying that, the Mission Act covers care in the community. And he did mention that they were able to increase the number of providers, but I'm also hearing from Mr. Patrick Farrell that he would like to see an actual administrator or someone from the VA connected to care in the community to be able to actually be on the island, to be able to work directly with the providers to troubleshoot any issues that they have with the providers. I don't know if that's possible, but perhaps Dr. Lapuz and Mr. Escobar can address those issues. We are, the other elements of the Mission Act have been delayed because of VA's ability to be able to, they've had to focus their attention on the COVID-19 response. So my understanding, Dr. Lapuz and Mr. Escobar, that we are somewhat behind in getting the caregiver program fully implemented. And so, that was a major new benefit that was included in the Mission Act. And perhaps we can hear from the VA what we can expect, what the timeline is.
With regards to the implementation of the Mission Act, we're implementing the Mission Act in the U.S. Virgin Islands to the letter of the law and the regulations that have been established. So veterans are eligible when the care that is required by the veteran is not available through the VA. So if we cannot provide the services, then the veteran is eligible. The veteran is eligible on the nature of the distance from which they live in comparison to, like, for example, and this is a poor example in the U.S. Virgin Islands because it's a geographically quite difficult to navigate. Like, for example, a resident from St. John's will be eligible for care through the community care. The reason is because of the distance and the time that it will be required for that individual to get to the other islands. And then the third thing is regarding the wait times. So when our veterans have to wait longer than 14 days for primary care and 28 days for specialty, then they are eligible to receive the community care. So they are we've implemented 100%. Now, we acknowledge that making a phone call to negotiate this and all of the intricacies of having to have a care coordination that is being done in Puerto Rico is a little bit more difficult to execute. And so we agree with Patrick that the best way to do this is to have a local presence in St. Thomas and St. Croix. And we're working to accomplish that. We have, in our discussion with Patrick, the first thing that we would like to accomplish is have a contract for our clinic in St. Thomas. And currently, the medical center is working with contracting to ensure that we can execute that contract. And as soon as we do have a primary care provider who will be representing the VA in St. Thomas, then what we're going to do is we're going to work on having a staff that will be a community care staff that will take care of both St. Thomas and St. Croix. In terms of the caregiver support, we have just unfortunately, before the pandemic, there is a proposal of the regulation as required by law to be published at the Federal Register. And soon after the publication, we received several comments, in fact, quite a bit of comments regarding the regulation. And we are required by law to examine all of those comments and to make sure that we respond to them. And that is what we are in the process. So there is a draft of the regulation. We have the commenting period in terms of the regulation has now been done with, and we are now just looking at those comments to make sure that we respond to them. So as soon as there is a final regulation, we will implement the caregiver support program that is embedded in the Mission Act.
Thanks so much. I know that the chairman has a lot of other responsibilities, other things going on right now, and I just want to thank you so much, Chairman Takano. Mark, it's meant a great deal to have you personally on the call answering these questions, hearing the issues that are relevant to the people of the Virgin Islands. So thank you so much. So I want to thank you. Whenever you need to go, please do. I wanted to direct the question to Mr. Escobar and Mr. Farrell to ask you all about the status of the local CBOCs. How often are they open, and what services do does that facility provide?
I'll yield to Carlos on that.
Yeah, the local community-based outpatient clinics at St. Thomas and St. Croix they're open weekly. We are scheduled open regular business hours from 8 to 4:30 on a daily basis. And we also conduct special clinics for what are called the laboratory screening that is required to support the diagnostics required to maintain the services for the veterans, especially in areas of blood work, which currently we have typically runs from Tuesdays and Thursdays, twice a week in that context. Hopefully I'm addressing your question.
Mr. Farrell? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask one question of your viewers.
Please, if you have questions, that would be awesome.
So to the Islanders, I want to know if anybody had family members or knows of veterans that needed to be evacuated before the last great hurricane. I know that VA does that. And one of the things we encountered in Puerto Rico is the difficulty of transporting highly vulnerable veterans without family members, and family members did not, the portability of Medicaid was an issue in family members being able to accompany the vulnerable veterans and their families. And I want to know if that was an issue. I don't remember if we've corrected the portability of Medicaid for people who live in the territories.
Mr. Farrell or anyone else can respond to that?
This is Director Farrell. I thought the question was more directed to one of the veterans. I kind of was answering another question online at the same time, so I didn't get the whole question. Sorry.
Yeah, it was really a question to your constituents. It was just, I don't know if maybe Dr. Lapuz can tell me or tell us whether any veterans had to be evacuated from the Virgin Islands. I know that some veterans from Puerto Rico were evacuated to the mainland, but many veterans, what we heard from some of the veterans advocacy groups in Puerto Rico were that many families were, that some veterans were reluctant to go to the mainland to be evacuated out of the harm's way in advance of the arrival of Hurricane Maria because family members could not go with them and family members were concerned about their ability to have the portability of Medicaid was an issue. So first, Dr. Lapuz, you might want to answer whether anybody was evacuated from, any vulnerable veterans were evacuated from the Virgin Islands.
The evacuation occurred among the non-veterans population surge during Irma. So what happened was we were the FCC. So we coordinated the evacuation of dialysis patients from the US Virgin Islands, and they were on veterans and non-veterans alike. So they were all transferred to Puerto Rico, and some of them actually ended up being in Florida and in mainland US. So we took part of that. Now, unfortunately, I am not familiar with Medicaid. So,
well, the issue, I'd have to go check on that, but the issue was that some of these veterans who are vulnerable couldn't have family members go with them because the VA does not pay for that. I'm assuming that the non-veterans that were evacuated who were dialysis patients were done, that was done under the fourth mission, under the humanitarian basis.
That is correct, sir.
Yeah, Congresswoman, I think we need to check into this issue of the portability of Medicaid, whether that's been taken care of for people in the territories, because that becomes an inhibition during times of emergency for relatives to be able to accompany their vulnerable veteran relatives, and even vulnerable non-veterans that are evacuated on a humanitarian basis by the VA.
Yes, I put in the question to see if there were any participants who knew of instances like that. I have not heard back as yet.
Okay, I'm going to have to bid you farewell, but what an honor to be here. Someday I'm going to make it down to your beautiful island. And
you're going to have a fantastic time, be able to talk with a lot of our veterans who are not shy about speaking with people, and you'll continue to come back. I can assure you of that.
Well, as they shouldn't be shy. They have served our country. They deserve to have their concerns heard. So thank you so much. Thank you. I see some other questions that are here and wanted to make sure that we were answering them. The quick one is telehealth available on St. Croix?
Yes, it is. It is available in all of Vision 8, and we advise you to call the Clinical Contact Center, and the Clinical Contact Center will have a triage nurse to evaluate your medical needs, and we also have the capability, once you need to see a licensed independent provider, they will transfer the call to a licensed independent provider so then you can be seen by telehealth.
Great, thank you.
And by the way,
yes.
just like I'd like to make sure that everybody understands it's 24/7, and that's available in the US Virgin Islands.
Thank you. Another participant has a question. This veteran is a law enforcement officer who's seen an increase in homeless veterans on the island that have come in from the mainland. We find quite often it's a phenomena that individuals who may have mental issues or are in need are dropped off in a very warm climate, or have come here to work on short contracts, may have relapse in issues and remain on the island. Have we had any thought about veterans housing, or are there grant funding to meet the need for these veterans in constructing dwellings, or some support services outside of purely medical support? You're on mute, sir, sorry.
Yes, we have a whole host of programs regarding homeless veterans. So first of all, there is the HUD-VASH that the Chairman Takano actually mentioned. That is an outright grant in collaboration with HUD. And that will allow us to provide vouchers to veterans that will need housing, so then they can pay their rent. And then the others are grants to organizations. Majority of these grants are granted to nonprofit organizations that have transitional housing. So the grant per diem program that is available for any nonprofit who would like to send in a proposal, and that's a competitive process. So we evaluate the proposal to make sure that it is designed to help veterans, that will allow them to rapidly transition to independent living. So that is available also. So there are many other programs in the housing that will allow existing organizations and foundations, nonprofit organizations, to apply for a grant.
If I may add to that,
Yes, please.
I just want to mention that the Methodist Training and Outreach Center, which has been a great partner throughout the last few years, they are a nonprofit organization, and they do get a grant from VA on an annual basis because of the great work that they're doing for our veterans here in the territory. As a matter of fact, Mr. DeRima, maybe and some of his other colleagues are on the line. So if there is a particular question that you want to pose to them, they are here. They are with us today.
Thank you. Thank you. And someone is saying thanks so much for that information, and they're going to be exploring that with you. This is a pretty specific question. How does the VA medical work with VBA on claims issues? I have, for the third or fourth time, received a notice of intent to decrease my disability benefit for degenerative joint disease of the right knee. This notice was sent in the midst of our ongoing pandemic, when services were limited or non-existent, but I digress. I'm 5 days post-surgery on that very knee, the third time since 2006, because the condition is, in fact, degenerative. Any response?
Okay, this is very tricky. Okay, so if VBA is requesting us to do the examination, and there are examinations only the VA can do because of statute, then we perform under the request of VBA. We do not provide, in the absence of a request from VBA, we do not provide VBA information of your medical record. So VBA has no contemporaneous knowledge of what's going on in your healthcare. And there's a reason for that design, because we want you to be truthful when you're seeing your doctor. Not that anybody will attempt not to be truthful, but we want you to be as candid, honest, so we can take care of your medical problems. We don't want you thinking about whether your benefits are going to be withdrawn if you tell your doctor, well, I'm better if I take this, or I'm worse if I do this. So that is the main reason why there is that separation. So we only do medical examination upon the request of VBA. We don't feed them continuous information because there are two reasons, to protect your privacy, and the other reason is to make sure that privileged communication between the patient and provider is maintained.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I also want to share with everyone that if you have specific needs, that both Director Farrell and our office are available to support you. Our office, you would fill out a privacy form, and Candia or another member of the team will work with you while you are working through these claims or other issues. And our office number is 340-778-5900 or 340-774-5408. And we'll put that in the chat, and we'll also list it again. But one of the questions I saw here is, what is the Congresswoman and the VIVA Director doing about forcing Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority to implement the Virgin Islands Code 21 Housing for Veterans? I will allow Director Farrell to respond, but again, if an individual has a complaint that they are not, that an agency is not following the law specific to a veteran, then you would need to contact our office so that we can specifically act as an intermediary with you and with the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority or any other agency which is supposed to give preference or support to veterans. And we can work through that in that manner. Director Farrell, did you have anything to add on that?
Mr. Farrell, before you begin, due to time constraints, unfortunately, this will have to be our last question and answer.
Thank you, Japir.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I do want to add to that, and I think you alluded to it as well. If there is a situation where you are not getting what you think you're supposed to have, please contact us so we could be, like the Congresswoman said, that intermediary for you, so we could nail on whatever the issue is. Please do not sit in your corner and think that we know everything that's going on with you, the veteran, or everything that's going on within every agency. We would love to hear from you so we can fix your issue. That's what we do. We advocate on your behalf, but we must know what is taking place in order for us to address the concerns for you. We work on your behalf. And I'd also like to say that every Tuesday on FM 107.9, we have a radio show called The Veteran's Voice, where we address concerns and issues for veterans. Every Tuesday from 7 p.m. It's a call-in talk show. You could air your concerns as well. And thanks to Carlos Escobar, we have been having the VA Caribbean healthcare system on the line with us from the inception of COVID-19, giving us updates every single Tuesday on the VA Caribbean healthcare system.
So thank you, Dr. Farrell and Director Farrell. Thank you for that information. I also want to thank Mr. Escobar. You've been invaluable to responding to the questions, along with Dr. Lapuz. Thank you so much for your service to our community. I want to thank Chairman Takano and his staff who are always there for us. And again, for my office, you can call 340-774-4408, 774-4408, or 340-778-5900. And again, Candia is our liaison for Veterans Affairs here in the office, and we're more than happy to help you all. And please don't, if there were questions that were not answered, our staff is going to look through them and get that information into the chat as well. This has been live on Facebook and other social media platforms, and everyone be safe and have a blessed day.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.